I married a man who liked me despite my frailty and timidity in romance. I thought we were enjoying our married life, but while I was hospitalized, my husband found a beautiful woman who was a divorcee. Not only that, but he also decided to leave me, saying, "I can't stay with you because you don't work, and I'll take $800 a month in compensation." So, he coldly moved forward with the divorce. My name is Michelle. I work quietly as an office worker in a real estate company. I never had a particular interest in real estate or a knack for office work. In fact, I've been physically weak since childhood, often experiencing breathing difficulties due to internal organ issues. While not life-threatening, it meant I spent time in the hospital once or twice a year. There were concerns about my ability to work as an adult, especially with recommendations to avoid strenuous activities. However, on my parents' advice, I found that I could manage office work. Despite occasional hospitalizations, I've been doing well in my current job, with understanding colleagues. I met my husband, Tony, at a social gathering similar to a group blind date, which was organized by a friend. Honestly, I was hesitant about romance because I thought my frailty would be a burden to anyone I dated. This led to a long period without a boyfriend, and before I knew it, I had passed the age of 30. My friend, considering my situation, encouraged me by saying, "You should find a man who understands you, Michelle. It's not like your condition severely affects your daily life, let's be positive." So, she invited me to join them. At the event, I felt things wouldn't work out. There were 3 men, one of whom I found nice, but he seemed interested in another woman. I knew I wasn't particularly attractive, and the other women there seemed prettier. I had resigned myself to not finding anyone there, but Tony, who later became my husband, actively approached me. He was considerate, offering me soft drinks as I didn't drink much. But listening to him, I realized he was the last person I wanted to get close to. I want to marry someone who matches me. My ideal is marrying a top actress. Hearing such things made it clear to me that Tony and I were not a good match. His overconfidence made me wonder where it came from, and even caused me to feel a sense of aversion. However, despite that, he continued to engage with me. He asked, "What type of guy do you like, Michelle? And do you have any desire to get married? Because I'm really looking to get married soon." He kept talking to me, seemingly eager and persistent. I thought he was frivolous, but we exchanged contacts, though I doubted anything would come of it. Surprisingly, Tony frequently contacted me, even asking me out. Gradually, my feelings for him grew. However, I was still anxious. Why would a man with high ideals and a frivolous nature be interested in someone like me? I had mentioned to him about my frail health, and when I shared this with a friend, they said, "Guys often want to appear strong and impressive at first. That's probably why he said those things." They added, "Despite all that, he seems to really like you, Michelle." That's what they told me. Believing this, I changed my mind about Tony, and we grew closer, eventually marrying. Our first year of marriage felt truly happy. We started living together in a spacious and affordable apartment that I had found. Interestingly, my episodes almost ceased to occur, and I never had to be hospitalized while I was with Tony. Perhaps the fulfillment I felt being with him helped improve my health. Tony was considerate towards me, and I felt confident enough to say that marrying him was the right decision. However, after a year, I started noticing changes. Tony's attitude towards me shifted. Though I have a weak constitution, I managed to do basic housework. I always prepared meals, and Tony used to say they were delicious, which made me happy. But gradually, he stopped saying such things and even started to complain about my cooking. "Michelle, isn't the soup a bit bland today? I wasn't really in the mood for meat today. I admit that I'm not particularly good at cooking." So making the exact same taste every day is challenging. But until now, he had never complained. Moreover, I can't know what Tony wants to eat unless he tells me. I was honestly shocked when he said he wasn't in the mood for something. Nevertheless, I loved Tony and wanted to meet his expectations. However, his attitude towards me only worsened. When he came home from work, he used to greet me cheerfully with, "I'm home. Worked hard today." But he stopped doing that and instead said things like, I'm tired. I want to do something fun," showing no interest or enthusiasm. Our habit of going out on days off, which used to be almost a certainty, also vanished. When I suggested, "Shall we go somewhere on our next day off?" Or, "You seem tired, let's go somewhere relaxing," he would yawn and coldly reply, I'm too tired to go anywhere. If you want to go, go by yourself." As his behavior increasingly seemed strange, I began to feel my health deteriorating again. It's as if my body was reflecting my growing anxiety and unease. The more anxious I became, the more it affected my health. Then, Tony started coming home late from work and on his days off. Even though he said he wanted to rest, he would leave saying, "A friend invited me for a drink, I'll be back soon," disregarding me entirely. This behavior went beyond just being odd, it started to breed distrust in me. Simultaneously, my physical condition began to resemble the times I had episodes in the past. If this continued, I would end up hospitalized again. Hospital stays usually last about 2 weeks, something I'd rather avoid. So, I wanted to talk to Tony about our situation. One day, when he returned from an errand, I asked him honestly, "Hey, you've been acting strange, haven't you? You're cold towards me. Have you started to dislike me? If you have something to say it. Otherwise, I'll go crazy." But he, perhaps drunk, blatantly spoke his true feelings to me. "I'm not doing anything weird. I haven't started to hate you, but I don't love you anymore. Are you misunderstanding something? I dated you and even married you, you know. Besides, your income is low. I'm just stressed because there's nothing fun to do." He spoke in a detached manner. His clear and blunt words left me speechless, causing deep emotional hurt. The anger and sadness that followed were overwhelming. It was as if he didn't care about me anymore. Essentially, he had reluctantly dated and married me. This reminded me of when we first met. At the mixer, I realized he had his sights on another woman. When she showed interest in another man, he turned to me, the one left over. I thought his eagerness to marry was genuine and that I was the only viable option for him at that time. My fears about him being frivolous and not serious about someone like me were confirmed. As these thoughts raced through my mind, my health worsened. There was one thing I wanted to correct in Tony's words. But I no longer felt the need or the desire to say it. Not wanting Tony's care, I called my workplace to inform them of my impending episode and took a taxi to the hospital. After a 2-week stay, I returned home, still uncertain about how to proceed with Tony. But upon my return, he said something completely unexpected. "Oh, you're back? Did you get some rest?" Man, I was surprised. I knew you were weak, but I didn't expect you to be hospitalized. His way of speaking showed no concern for me at all. Thinking back, he never visited me once while I was in the hospital. True, I hadn't mentioned frequent hospitalizations when we were dating. And this was my first hospitalization since we had been together. Maybe that's why he reacted this way, but his shocking statements were yet to come. But taking it easy in the hospital, that's a nice life, huh? Earning so little and still taking time off. Naturally, your income will decrease. I don't want to continue this boring life anymore, I'm done. A wife who doesn't work is worthless. Let's get a divorce. Tony said this without any remorse. I was dumbstruck by his sudden declaration. Then, he added, "Actually, I decided something while you were in the hospital. I've decided to marry this woman." He showed me a photo on his smartphone of a very beautiful woman. His new girlfriend. It confirmed what I always knew: he likes beautiful women. This woman is my childhood friend. I was surprised at how beautiful she's become when we met by chance recently. He grinned as he explained this to me. Moreover, regarding our separation, he said, "The reason for the divorce is your fault. I'm the victim because I have a wife who doesn't work. So, you should pay me compensation of $800 a month. It's your punishment for using me for so long." He expected me to pay despite thinking my income was low. And him, the victim? How twisted could his thinking be? I was shocked to face such a situation soon after returning from the hospital. But I quickly regained my composure and honestly thought, this means I can separate from him right away. Deep down, I had already reached this conclusion. It's best to part ways with him. But divorcing so soon after getting married? Surprisingly, I was conscious of what others would think. However, his current behavior was a wake-up call. I decided to accept his demands. So, I took out the divorce papers I had prepared earlier, signed my name, and handed them to him. "All right, if you have a new fiancé, I understand. Here, the divorce papers. Sign them quickly." He looked surprised for once and said, "Oh, that was quick. Sometimes you do think. Now we can get divorced." He signed the papers, grinning, and handed them back to me, saying, "Don't forget about the compensation. Start transferring it by the end of this month." Then he went back to his room. He must have been surprised. He didn't expect me to comply so easily. But I had been contemplating divorce anyway. It was just a matter of time. However, I hadn't accepted everything he said. Compensation? That's another story, which he'll realize later. A week or so after moving out of the house I shared with Tony, my health was stable. And I was going about my daily life. After work one day, I checked my phone and saw over 200 missed calls from an unknown number. What? Over 200 missed calls. When I opened the history, Tony's name was listed repeatedly. Seeing this, I couldn't help but feel relieved. Because I knew why he had been calling. When I called him back, his panic was obvious. He said, "Hey, I got a demand for $50,000 in compensation. That's too much, don't you think?" But how could he not understand without an explanation? "Well, you were cheating on me with your fiancé while we were married, right?" Was her name Hillary Johnson? She's really beautiful, isn't she? He was flustered when I mentioned her name. What are you talking about? More importantly, how do you know her name? The answer was simple. Why do I know? Because I hired a detective. Your actions were obviously suspicious, so I decided to ask for a little help. They contacted me right away saying it was a definite case. They even showed me proof photos. According to the latest information, you had her stay over at our house just 3 days ago, right? By the way, I filed for divorce the day before yesterday. So we were still married 3 days ago. Telling him this, he looked like he was about to explode. He had demanded compensation from me, but this was why I refused to accept that part. Detectives are amazing, but they sure cost a lot of money. When I mentioned that, he nervously asked, "That's true. But you don't have that kind of money, do you?" But that was just his misconception. Indeed, my salary as an office worker wasn't significant. But now, I'm ready to reveal the truth I wanted to counter when he called me low income. But, I do have about $400,000 in rental income. The reason being, my father is the president of the real estate company I work for. The company, passed down from my great-grandfather, owns roughly 100 buildings and apartments. My father put several of those properties in my name. Perhaps that's his way of showing love. So, the rent from those properties goes into my account. However, he always told me to do my best in my office job. Tony always assumed I was just a weak, low-income office worker. But he was quite shocked to learn the truth. Seriously. You should have said that earlier. He realized he had let go of a big fish. If he had treasured me, he could have had a lot of fun. But his misfortune didn't end there. So, the apartment you're living in now is actually mine. I just picked it because it was vacant. That's why there was no rent. But, if you continue living there, the rent is $2,000 a month. Looks like your entire monthly salary is going to be gone. He always claimed I was low income, but his salary wasn't great either. That's why I chose one of my properties for him. Now, it might be too late to tell him. And then, another tragedy struck him. The beautiful fiancée, Hillary, apparently got to know the truth. It seems she was being claimed for compensation as his affair partner. And naturally, the engagement was called off, and she disappeared from Tony's life. Tony, having spent his meager salary and even borrowed money to impress Hillary, ended up with nothing in the end. It's a result of his arrogance and lack of effort, thinking he could land a big catch without trying. As a result, Tony lost his wife, his home, and his new fiancée in an instant. All that remained was his considerable debt. Finally, he said to me, "Hey, let's give it another try. You're the one for me, after all." Such a desperate statement. But without it, he would have an even more boring life than before. However, as far as I'm concerned, he no longer means anything to me. But, you would say you were just with me because you had no choice, right? Don't worry about me, I'll be fine. I replied casually and decided to end the call. His calls continued, but they were so annoying that I blocked his number. Since then, he has been evicted from the apartment and lives in a shabby place, struggling with debt. He works from morning till night, but another hardship hit him. Hillary's acquaintances, tough-looking guys, found out where he lived and started threatening him. You're going to pay the compensation she's being charged with, too. While their methods are forceful, what they say isn't unreasonable. After all, Hillary was deceived. Thus, Tony's debt only grew. Now he's so dispirited that no one wants anything to do with him. As for me, I'm in good health, free from major stress. The episodes have stopped, too. Overcoming this huge obstacle has perhaps made me mentally stronger. My office work no longer suffers, and my parents are happy. Now, I focus on not stressing myself and being honest with my feelings. When asked about my next relationship, I think I'll stay away from it for a while. Work has become enjoyable, and I find it fulfilling. Before thinking about romance, I plan to travel. Something I couldn't do before due to my health concerns.